Hello and welcome back to Soul Purpose Leaders. I am so excited today to be here and I'm so grateful as well. Why we're here? We're here because we want to bring these amazing leaders to come and shine and actually show you what they're doing for themselves and what they're doing for other people. So you don't have to worry going into the Google and start looking one by one because they're going to be all of them here, different expertise, and you can just scroll down and look at the right person for you. Now, I am excited because I've got a new guest, and today I've got Kelly Blackmon. He was born and raised in one of Chicago's poorest and most violent neighborhoods. From there, his family moved them into a public housing apartment, aka the projects. He mentioned where he grew up because there seemed to be some sort of mystification with people who made it out from the ghetto. And while he was definitely raised in and around poverty, violence, and plenty of the worst part of life, Kelly considered himself to be fortunate. His childhood was a rough one, but one that caught him preparation, self-reliance, and balance. It was ultimately prepared him for success. Kelly have spent most of his life working in finance in one form or another. In 2005, while working in accounting, he started another DePaul University majoring in business and marketing. Every subject spoke to him. It was like all the abstract ideas and one-off methods he'd learned working in accounting and sales had finally gave solid form, and now he was able to use them at will. So Kelly immediately went to work for himself as a business coach. He canvassed the neighborhood, shops, restaurants around the place he'd grown up and asked questions about how they run their business in exchange for marketing and business advice. This is where he learned one of the most important lessons about entrepreneurs. Most of them had no real business acumen. They were good at cooking, so they'd open a restaurant. They were good at fixing cars, so they'd open an auto body shop. Most had no marketing plan, no expertise, no business plan, no financial plan. They were going what they knew and making just enough to avoid closing. And he would help in any way he could, most in planning. This eventually moved into helping other people start businesses. A few years later, he found himself getting into an influx of people asking for help writing resume. With his experience talking to people in charge of hiring, it was an easy thing to help with. In fact, it was so easy that he decided that it would be a great way to supplement his hustle income. From working with struggling business, places like Upwork and Fiverr became his portal to helping people get into the jobs of their dreams. And then he became, and the pay was great. A few hours of a resume touch up and a LinkedIn profile. He was up for $300. And what was odd for him was that he'd run into some people again and again. He'd help them to get into Deloitte and Touch, they will tell me. Twitch. And a couple of years later, he'd be helping them to get into PricewaterhouseCoopers. Then a few years later, Ernst & Young, it was the same thing he'd seen with the startup businesses. Many of them were miserable. They chased their dream down. They were supposed to be happy, but none of them were. This led Kelly to dig deeper. He wanted to know why these people were getting the things they asked for but weren't fulfilled. The answer came when he went back to school for psychology. Ooh. It opened up a whole new world of understanding about people and their motivations. It turned out to be the case that the people who were unhappy because they hadn't tapped into their root why. They had no idea what they really wanted. They were too busy listening to outside sources and chasing money to know what was really driving them. And that it was he's doing now with BE Consulting. Kelly help people to get to their root why, so we can discover what we truly believe, what we truly bring them joy and fulfillment. Wow, that's amazing piece. Guys, I am so excited. I don't know about you, okay? I've been reading this and I'm like, whoa, I need this man to start speaking because I want to know more about this man. So here he is, Kelly Blackmon. Please come in and join us. How are you today?
I am doing so well, Barke. And thank you so much. I realized listening to you read my bio, you should do my audiobook. Like, like you make it sound so good. I feel so much more professional listening to you read it. Yeah, so first off, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure. I watched your interview with the I cannot remember her name, but she's a dentist, and I was so just amazed at one, how natural you are, but then two, like how much you really brought out of like that interview. And I was able to get so much from it. So when you said that I could interview with you, I was like, yes, definitely. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm so pleased and I'm so happy that you're here. Oh my goodness. I love what you do. And for a person like you, coming from a place where you started, seeing the poverty, seeing the difference of how people can struggle in
Yeah.
themselves, but also in their business. Can you give us more in detail of the life? How did it look like for you then at that young age as well?
Well, so first, what initially happened, I guess, uh, my family was, we were poor. Um, a lot of times what comes with that is a lot of instability. So we moved like probably every year, every other year. I went to multiple schools. Um, so just from that standpoint, there was a real lack of stability. There was a real lack of just really having anything that you thought was safe or okay or again stable. So if you add that to the fact that these neighborhoods we're moving into aren't the best neighborhoods, and eventually we moved into the projects, or to be like the I guess like tenements, it would be just the worst of those places. And even with that, there's still a sense of community and neighborhood. It's just that, again, the um once you have a combination of like uneducated people who are also poor, and and not to put too much into this, but it was also the case that during this time, uh, like the government essentially said, if you're poor, you can be poor and be a woman, but you can't like have a man in the house. So they would randomly like just unlock our door and come into our place and check like if we have new appliances or something, because they're like, basically, if you have a man, you have someone who is able to take care of you. So it was in a lot of ways set up in order to make sure to discourage families. And of course, these are Black, Latino families. So what essentially happened is that you have this neighborhood full of people who aren't really pushed to do anything better, or the best thing that they can see has to do with either you're going to rap, you're going to play basketball, or you're going to sell drugs. And these are kind of essentially our role models. Um, most people weren't that good at rapping. Most people weren't that good at basketball. So obviously it is very drug ridden, and with drugs and that sort of thing, there's going to come also violence. So it was there. Some of my best memories come
Mm.
from this same place, but it is a case that um, you knew that certain boundaries you didn't cross, like physical boundaries. Like if you were on this street, you didn't cross over to that street because that was a different gang territory. Certain things you didn't do, certain colors you didn't wear. Um, so again, I would say that my youth time is a lot of instability. It was a lot of not being sure. It was a lot of not being clear on goals and that sort of thing. And there was a whole culture of people growing up in these places across the U.S. So that was me in a nutshell early on.
Wow, that's the most scariest, but also the most kind of like, it happens.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's the reality. Now,
Hmm.
you seen all that. And when you say that, oh my goodness, I had also good things as well there. It's
Hmm.
not just all the bad things. But then you grew up and you wanted to help your community. What came over you, or what did kind of like arises or waken that feeling that you wanted to help your own community?
So I wish I can say that I was like initially led to that. I was not. Um, even because a lot of what gets put in front of you, a lot of the expectation is money or status, or having a really nice place to live or a really nice car, and those sort of things are typically what's going to be put in front of us. So that's what I started off chasing. So I'd be looking for the highest paying job, even if it maybe wasn't the best job, or the best thing to be doing. um even when I started up my first company, in '05, when I started doing that, that was like my side hustle to help businesses with marketing and business planning and things like that. Essentially what happened is that I called Accenture, which is, one of the biggest consulting firms in the world, and I said, hey, I got a small business. How much does it cost to have you help me and consult for me? And they were like, well, you have to be making at least $10 million a year. And it's like, oh, okay. So I just hung up like that. That's not going to be a thing. So essentially what I saw was that there are all of these small businesses who didn't seem to have the knowledge on how to run as businesses on one hand, and didn't seem to have the money on the other hand to actually pay someone to help them. So they're just going at it by themselves. And this is about '05. So although the internet does exist, it's nowhere near as informative as it is now. And a lot of these people who are starting businesses honestly wouldn't have very much idea about how to make the best use of it now if they were in that position. So there was a large gap in knowledge, and I was like, cha-ching, I can make some good money. So this is essentially like where I started off. It really wasn't until going through those psych classes and kind of coming to understand myself. It really is about self-awareness, and that's some of the stuff that I really try to get into when we're talking about figuring out your why, figuring out what your purpose is, and figuring out fulfillment. You really have to understand yourself before you can do any of that, because basically, if you think about it, most of us are going off of whatever it was that our parents said we should be doing, or our family, or just the people in our circle. um, we're typically trapped by that stuff. Granted, in a lot of cases, we're built up to chase things, but if it's not something that really vibes with you, then you're essentially not going to feel fulfilled, you're not going to feel happy, and you're going to be chasing something else soon.
But to be honest, what you said there is the reality of life itself. A lot of people, they would either choose one or the other.
Yeah.
Now, some, like you said, you'd seen that people, especially in the neighborhood that you're living in, they aspire to either drug dealing or
Yeah.
basketball, and nobody
Yeah.
was good at that. So, or rapping as well.
Right.
So now, but you actually having that ability to think and say, you know what, I'm going to, yes, I see money that I can make money here, but
Hmm.
also you see that potential of those businesses, but also you see
Hmm.
potential on yourself.
Yeah.
Because if we look and if we listen to that biography when I was reading it, in a way that you started working in finance and you
Hmm.
wanted to progress in yourself as well, to actually
Hmm.
go and started learning about psychology and actually wanting to know, because you had these questions. And I can feel that within your biography, asking why people act like this,
Hmm.
why they will have these businesses, but then they will only act to a minimum of that business. They're not really going deeper into it. Can you talk to us a bit more of that realization, because of these questions coming
Hmm.
up for you, because you're helping these businesses, but then you had the answer because of your own growth, but also you're helping other people as well in this time.
Hmm. Well, so when I started school for business, I guess it was my intention to start a business. Um, when when I started learning the different things about business, about marketing specifically, I started wondering like, what are the businesses in my neighborhood doing? Now, I'm older at this point. My neighborhood is still not the best, but it is better. And there are multiple small business owners, and you could see it almost immediately because I remember my first client. I cannot remember her name, but she ran a Chinese food restaurant. Really sweet lady, and she was so open and so willing to talk. And I was like, "Hey, you ever think about running a marketing campaign?" She's like, no, not really. Not really. Like, I wouldn't know how. I was like, well, how about this? Have you done the SWOT analysis, with your strengths and weaknesses? And uh, no, no, I haven't. What is that? And then I'm like, well, okay, how about this? What are your competitors doing? Like, who are your competitors? And she vaguely knew of one competitor, but mainly because it was another Chinese lady that she just really didn't like, and she's like, yeah, and they got their Chinese food restaurants open because of this and that, and they've done these underhanded dealings, and it's like, okay, so initially what jumped out at me is the more I talked to another guy who ran he's an auto mechanic, and he's what we just basically call an alley mechanic, and this is what he was good at, this is what he understood. But when we start talking about, well, do you have any ideas for where you're going to be in 10 years or growth or anything like that, and he's just like, no, I'll probably just be here doing the same thing. It's like, okay, but what about things that change? And in the automotive industry, um with different cars, like they're changing not only the bodies but the setup, and they're really trying to keep the repair money from those from those like alley mechanics, and force you to have to go to like a dealership or go to someone who's certified because they want to keep that money in the loop. And you know like talking to him about that, he was like completely unaware, like, no, I have no idea about anything I'm going to be doing in the future. And it's like, well, you realize that that may be a part of running a business. And so it was like almost immediately you can see that there's this huge gap between like their knowledge and like what was needed to stay afloat. And obviously in the US, they say about 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. And a lot of that is due to, well, a lot of it is due to undercapitalization, but a whole lot of that is due to, I don't know where I'm going. Like, I know what I'm good at, and that's what immediately started to speak to me. That idea that I cook because I'm a great cook. As far as like how to do my budget, how to do inventory, how to like none of this stuff is really in their wheelhouse. So I just saw a great opportunity as I was learning about those same things to put it into play.
That's I love that analogy because a lot of us who have passion or have
Yeah,
purpose in life, we kind of thinking of our the main passion. This is my
yeah,
passion. I've got it in the bag. I know
that's
how
right.
to sell it and how to make it. Yeah.
That's
But
right.
end of the day, I don't know how I can go
Any of the
about it.
business side. Yep,
Exactly. And most
yep,
of us,
yep.
especially coaches, speakers, people who have this real passion, they are lost too. So,
Hmm.
would you please tell us or give us some advice? Where should we start on helping ourselves,
Well,
please?
well, so it really comes down to becoming self-aware, and I've d- I do this exercise with everybody I can. I mean, not just my clients, but everybody who listen. I tell them to do this exercise, and it's essentially write your eulogy. Write your eulogy because when you think about the end of your life and you think about what the world and everyone will see you as, it kind of really starts to bring home what's important, like what's really important to you. What are your core values? What are the things that you really really want to have known that this is me when you die? So typically I tell people to start there. Write your eulogy. It just needs to be a few paragraphs. Once you write your eulogy, and this is really hard for a lot of people, like for a lot of people. I've had people get angry when I've told them that this should be their first step. I've had people tear up because it's just it's really tough. It's the idea is to be future oriented, but it's about um, knowing what that future should be. And once you know that, it is very easy to take three, four, five core values out of that eulogy. And those can be the things that you start to learn about. And then as you start to learn about those things, you start to learn about you. And from there, it is much easier, like so much easier to start developing a plan of, all right, so what's really important to me is that I want to impact people's lives. And this is what people say all the time. I want to have impacted lives. I want to have a legacy. All right, that's great. You can easily say, why? Well, I want to impact people's lives because I wanted to be understood that I was here. Well, why? Well, because I love people and I want them to blah blah blah. Why? And usually, using that 5 why method, what I found is that it usually comes down to this idea of value. Like I really want to feel like my life had value, like I had a purpose. And then not to go too much into it, but at that point you can really start to break down, where does that come from, where does that, like where does that come from, that need for purpose, that need for um, usually that need for validity and for value. And then you can actually start working on, hey, you're valuable now in this way, this way, this way, this way. And it's a process, but it really helps you to clear up where you're coming from and where you want to go. And as far as life coaching, that's my job. Like, it's to help you clear up where you think you're going, and clear that up to where you know you want to go, and essentially help to map out a plan to get there. So, first step though, eulogy for everybody.
I love that. And yeah, this is something that what you said is true because end of the day, we try not to think about our
Yeah,
end of our
yeah,
lives. We try to hide
yep,
from that. So that's a great point because I love that in a way it gives clarity on what are you trying to
yeah,
leave
yep,
behind?
yep.
What are you trying to actually, for people to remember you by?
Mm-hmm,
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
And for you, what I love about you is that why? Simple 3 letter
yep,
word, and it can go so deep that it's like,
yep,
ouch. It can hurt at some point
yep,
too, you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, I didn't think of that one. So, but it's amazing, you know what I mean? And it's also more, especially what we do. And this is the point about our lives. You know what I mean? When you know I am here for a
yep,
reason and I'm
yep,
here to make a
yep,
difference. And that difference what exactly do you want to make that difference? And that's where you come in to actually kind of like, let's dig it out
Yeah.
there. Okay, let's dig it from yourself to put it out there for you to be able to go for the next five
Hmm.
years or
Hmm.
10 years and make it
I love
happen.
that you say that.
Wow, I
Yeah, I
love
love
that.
that you say like to dig it out from yourself because typically people are looking for that thing like outside of them and they're like, okay, so this thing is going to tell me why. This thing is going to give me my purpose. When in all reality, it's in there. It's in there already. I remember there was I used to work in a place that helped consolidate student loans, and student loan debt is one of the biggest things, at least in the U.S. Like this is where everyone complains across the racial, cultural, everything. And so this young lady was a doctor. Well, she's been going to school to become a doctor because her parents said you'll never amount to anything. So she said, let me aim for the highest thing I can, which is a doctorate or a medical doctor. And once her, I think it was her mom died, that thing that was fueling her, that anger and that resentment that was fueling her was no longer there. So she didn't finish. So she ends up with like 200 something thousand dollars of student loan debt with no degree. And you can imagine if you understood your why, if you can understood that, hey, my mom holding back love because of XYZ is what's fueling me. If you understood that, then you can kind of say, wait a minute, let me separate these things. Her love and her inability to show me love has nothing to do with what I need to do. I may be happy being a florist. That may be my thing, and that may be what you want to pursue. So in all reality, the that understanding your why, it has huge implications on where you go, because this girl is basically saying, I'm suicidal, I can't pay $200,000 worth of debt with no degree, so I can't get a job that can even pay me enough to pay this debt. So it's a huge thing. It's in us.
And this is where a lot of coaches or a lot of, you'll hear this a lot. What is your why?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
people only think only at the top layer of
Hmm.
their thinking,
Hmm.
and they're not really taking it deep.
Yeah.
So I love this today because we're actually opening it up, the
Yeah.
why is it
Yeah.
important to actually know your why? And
Yeah.
another thing is that also you touch there is that we have to stop looking at the answers outside. We have to look at the
Yep.
answer inside,
Always.
especially for business people. If you want to have your business, you already know your answers. You
Yep.
already know what you want. And
Yep.
how you're going to make it happen is, yes, when you have someone like Kelly on your side to actually get those answers out, but in a
Hmm.
way
Hmm.
that it doesn't feel forced, or it doesn't feel like a chore. It
Yep.
doesn't feel like
Yep.
you've been beaten to death. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
that, it's, oh my God, I can never do this again.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm telling you
Yeah.
guys, okay, because I know how it feels as a person, as a business person as well, I've gone through this in a way that knowing what you want from yourself or what you want
Yeah.
to do for others is not it. Is not That is not the end of the road. You
Yep.
haven't finished. That is a start. That is a beginning. Now, actually getting yourself a coach or getting yourself a mentor that who can go deeper into that for you to be able to bring it to life, that dream you've got or that goal you have. Can you
Hmm.
tell us, with someone right now sitting and actually watching this, and like, oh Barke, I have a dream, and I
Hmm.
have this service, or I have this product, or I have something that I really wanted to share to the world because I know it works wonders. So tell us, how would you give that advice to that person, please?
Well, let me first start off by shamelessly plugging myself. You can always go to my website, thebeconsulting.com, and you can honestly set up a 30-minute session with me. It's a free session, and we can actually start on that for you, with essentially helping you with some free tools that'll really help you to get some clarity on where it is you're actually going. Now, obviously, you won't be able to finish with that just 30-minute session, but if nothing else, it'll set you on a path to say, this is some of the things that I'll need to know. And all the information is out there. So if you say, hey, I don't want to coach, blah, 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 you can do the research. It's out there. Um, I would say, but essentially, if you don't want to do any of that, the first place is to really become self-aware. There are so many courses on emotional intelligence, on positive psychology, and those are the things that will really speak to things like your motivation, things like how you show up in the world, and things like how you will be able to interact with other people, because that's honestly the place where it starts. And well, I'm working on my course right now, and in this course is basically starting off with these foundations of growth, because all too often, it's kind of like you said, Barke. It'll be the case that coaches will say, yeah, well, what's your why? And they'll be able to clarify some of this stuff, but really to build out how you become a person who moves from here to here, you have to build a person up to be able to grow. And one of the things that I have is it's about 14 different tenets of like actual growth. So you have to start understanding like where you stand as far as kindness and patience and empathy and forgiveness, because um, as much as those don't necessarily seem like business tenants, is like they definitely affect the bottom line of every business. And you can see the difference between good companies and bad companies is expressed through how much they adhere to those sort of things. So when you're talking about entrepreneurs especially, you got to get to know yourself, and it's going to make a world of difference in how successful you are and how much you can actually accomplish.
You just hit it, the nail on the head. First of all, before I go further, is that anyone, okay, any of us, most of the time we know what we need to
Mm-hmm.
do, but we're
Mm-hmm.
lazy in doing it. And this is why we actually need to work with a coach, and
It
we
helps.
have to
Yeah.
work with someone else,
Yep.
because we have to have accountability.
That's right.
That's number
That's the
one.
word. Mm-hmm.
Number two is that when you said about actually learning in yourself, in knowing
Yep.
who you are as a person, and when you said about, oh, thinking about like self-awareness or
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, knowing who you are as a person in a way that, are you actually focusing on money? Are you
Yeah.
focusing on your on actual quality of what you're giving out, or what
Yeah.
you're actually selling, or what is the focus here? Because
Yep.
end of the day, most of us, and like you said as well, the good company, the bad company, we need
Yep.
to know the difference. So
Yep.
you are a perfect person to actually go to, because you've seen it yourself. You already told us there are people who follow their heart to make it happen to the business, but then they actually don't have the drive, because they're doing it either for resentment, or they're
Yep.
doing it because they don't know what they're actually
Yep.
doing it, and they're just
Yep.
trying their best. And some of them, they're doing it for the right reasons, but they don't have guidance.
That's right.
So
That's right.
here
People
we
end up on
are.
one end or the other. Yep.
Exactly. And this is why we're here. That's why we're talking about this. So,
Uh-huh.
Kelly, here you are. Shine, okay? Because I'm telling you, today we all need Kelly. We need it. This is the
I'm
most
gonna agree with
important
you.
thing.
I'm just gonna second that.
No, because I know myself, okay? And I went through this myself. And this is why I know and I understand where the
Mm-hmm.
pain is. And what I'm saying is that I've met you for a while, but I haven't gone deep to know you to this point. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing you
Mm-hmm.
to actually understand that, oh my God, what he's saying is actually it.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
leaders, we have to look in depth of who we are as a person,
Mm-hmm.
and what we want to show, or what we want to share to the world. And that's where
Yep.
we start. So,
Yep.
Kelly, You've told us a bit about your website. What other places you like to hang around so people can start, like stalk you for a second just to see you around there?
Yeah, well, you can always look me up on LinkedIn. I am Kelly Blackmon, success coach. Um, Facebook, I'm also on, and YouTube, but not so much. YouTube, I'm usually just putting I do a lot of interviews with people about leadership, about, accountability, about how do you move about growth, how do you move from a bad place to a good place. And you can find me on any of those three. You can also find me on my website. And in all honesty, I would say you were super kind, Barke. The reality is, I would say for anyone who isn't completely happy with where they are now, take that first step of looking inside. Like, hopefully it'll lead you to me, and I promise I'll try my best to help. But even if it doesn't, take that first step, because it's gonna make a difference in how you show up in the world. So, and obviously find me though.
But the most important thing here, let's think about this, okay? You work with Kelly, you get the money you really wanted and needed in your life. And another thing
Hmm.
is that you leave an imprint into this, the mark that you wanted, the legacy for your life, for your
Yeah,
children, for your great grandchildren. My goodness, this is amazing. Win-win situation. You have nothing to lose. So
win-win.
it's great. Yes. So this is good
Hmm.
news. Now, another thing is that all of what Kelly has already said about his where to contact him and how to contact him, do not worry. I will actually type it down for you, make it easy for you. You can just click the button and it will take you there. So that one is going to be on the description area. And I would love to ask you, Kelly, um,
Yes.
everything you've done so far in life, where are you actually looking upon? Where are you going? What is happening? What's the new stuff coming?
So this is a great time for me because I'm I I would say probably up until a couple of years ago, I wasn't really sure about my why. I understood that I wanted to help people, and I understood that there are people who were kind of segmented or fragmented, and they kind of want to do this, they kind of want to do that. Uh, I've become so much more clear in this past year. I think COVID, in a lot of ways, helped me in that sense to become very clear about where I'm going. So I have a couple of things going on. Um, I'm working on the free course, this Foundations of Growth, where I really do teach about these 14 tenets. You can really look at them as like the things that equal up love or humanity. So you don't have to have a religious belief or be of a certain belief. This is just about being a human being. So that should actually be out in a couple of months. It'll be a free course, so I want everybody to be able to take advantage of it. I'm also putting together a course for coaches. So, and a lot of times what happens is that um, the coaching certifications or the stuff that we get as coaches to try to learn and be more proficient, it's all very cookie cutter, it's all very much the same. So in order to be able to set yourself apart as a coach, I'm really I'm creating a course that's going to weave into all the coaching, all these different ideals, and from that you should be able to not only help a person to achieve a short-term goal that's going to actually help people to feel fulfilled and connect with their purpose, and that's really going to be more important. um Outside of that, my long term is to I have this idea. I call it leading with love, and I like to try to do this on a every interaction basis. So the short version is, what if it's the case that I can choose what I'm going to give you, anybody I'm talking to, anybody I interact with, email, interview, whatever the case, I want to try to start that off with this idea of what is the greatest thing that I can give you that you're in need of without any sort of need of reciprocity or getting anything back or anything like that. Like, I don't want to have a need or a desire or a want for anything back. And that is essentially how I'm defining love. I want to give you my best. It's an agape love, or love based on principle. And I want to lead every interaction with that. So the way it's worked out in my life, the way I've seen it work out, is that when I'm giving people that love, that making that choice, because that's really the only power you have if you think about it. We can't really control anything but our choices. And so for me, I'm choosing to give this love to everybody. And with the idea of like that 6 degrees of separation or chaos theory or the butterfly effect, it means that each one of us is going to make people a little bit better every time we give them love versus giving them greed or whatever else is going on in our heads. So that is essentially how I'm looking at my future. I want to make the world a better place, not through politics or money or these grandiose sort of things, but on a personal, every single situation I can choose love level, choose it. Choosing to give it to other people and help people to understand that that's a way to give back to everyone.
I love that. And it's a magnificent way of looking at life.
Hmm.
Okay, because Kelly, I am so happy that you came today, and I feel all the love that you spread with us here today. So
Yep, I'm
thank you,
trying.
and it's a blessing. No, really,
Mm.
that's the most important thing for every one of us. If we actually lead our lives every
Yeah.
single day and just say, "I'm just gonna be spreading love." That's it.
Hmm.
No hatred, not looking down at people, just
Yep.
spread love, just being pure, nothing
Yep.
else. And I don't look for it to come back. I'm
Yep.
just giving for free,
Yep.
okay? Because it's free anyway, okay? You can't buy
That's
that.
right.
Now, the most important thing here is that, again, the freedom of choice, you choosing for yourself to do that
Hmm.
for yourself
Hmm.
and for others. And that's
Yep.
up to us. Kelly, you have been an amazing guest, and I
Oh,
appreciate you.
thank you.
Really appreciating you. I would love to ask you, would you be able to come back into this show again?
Yeah, of course, anytime. I told you it was my pleasure to hang around with you for a little bit and talk about this stuff.
That's great because I have plans for next time to actually bring maybe a panelist, and
Oh
that's
yeah. Yep.
my thing that is going to happen for Soul Purpose leaders is bringing all the minds, kind of, well, not all of them could, so it'll be too much overloading for people, but in
Yeah.
small portions, so we
Yeah.
can get to actually nitty gritty areas that people
Uh-huh.
be like, we have questions. How are we going to do this?
Yep.
Where should I
Yep.
start? Who should I talk to? And I
Yep.
believe you're a perfect person for this.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you. You're so kind.
You're welcome. And it's not a kindness. Remember, we're spreading love here. Okay. So I'm
That's
part of
right.
I'm doing the good deed today.
That's right. That's right. I think if that's how you look at it, it changes how much you show up in the world. That is beautiful.
Exactly. That's the way it's supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. So I just
Mm-hmm.
want to say thank you and hope to see you soon. And for everybody else out there, I cannot wait to see who's next in this
Oh yeah.
show. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.